Today is January 26, 2022, 4:30 p.m. Greenwood Leflore Consolidated School District's work session. Can we please bow our heads for a moment of silent prayer? Amen. Dr. Brown.
Good evening. First, we have on our board work session agenda, Building Riser Architect updates.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Good afternoon.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. We're here today to give you an update on the ESSO projects, which is the window replacement and the HVAC upgrades and replacement.
It's okay for you to relax your mask because you're away from us.
So we're going to go through we'll try to make it as brief as possible because I know y'all are busy, but we're going to talk a little bit about the windows, and then we're going to talk about the HVAC. This is Walter Blaylock with SSR Engineering at Memphis, and they're handling the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing portion of the project. So what you see, you should all have copies. There's one report that is basically a window assessment, and there's another that is the HVAC assessment. And what we tried to do in the presentation is to kind of synopsize it because there's a lot of information in here. We've tried to just kind of narrow it down to the nuts and bolts. So with that, we'll start. So right now in this process, the work that we've completed is we've documented all of the existing buildings, which is a huge feat, because most of your buildings did not have floor plans or any sort of information. So right now, we've documented all of that. It's all been delivered to the team members. And the school district will have copies of all those drawings, so you'll be able to reference anything on any campus, which is, I think, a good thing. We've completed the window assessment. We've completed the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning assessment. And so with that, we're going to kind of move through a little bit. I know this is hard to read, but this is our spreadsheet. Each campus and each building on the campus is this illustration. And that's how we went about documenting it. So the ones in the red, we show away from the drawings. All the others we have. So it's going to be a great resource for the students, however, all these documents. And of course, we need them to do the work we do. So what we've done is on each campus, this is just a window assessment. We've compiled, we've inspected the windows, we've compiled a list of the condition, and we've included some photographs and some recommendations. In the booklet, you have every campus that we've pulled. I've just pulled out two examples. One is kind of the best case scenario, and then one is the worst case. So the best case would be Claudine Brown. Relatively new, the windows are not in terrible shape. You can see the biggest issue is there are single glazed, double glazed there. But if you had to say, there's one building we're not going to address, this might be it. Best case, please. I'm sorry, the worst case. Worst case probably would be Bankston, although I think there are a lot of runners-up for the worst case. There are a lot of worst cases. But Bankston, you can see there's still windows. A lot of them have lead paint on them that are peeling. A lot of the windows have been replaced with plexiglass, which is a real problem. When you look, some of your campuses, like Amanda Elsie, all of the windows are just a thin sheet of plexiglass. It's not even glass. So when you talk about security, when you talk about heating and ventilation, as Walter can talk about, those windows aren't doing a whole lot better. So in a nutshell, this is kind of all your campuses. In a nutshell, most of your windows are in such poor condition that they're I don't know that that's news to any of you. So part of our task with the project was to address the windows and the HVAC. As we look at budget, Walter's going to bring you up to speed the reality is we can spend every dollar that you have on HVAC. That's just the case. You probably still not get it done. So we kind of looked at it and said, okay, there are two options. One is you just don't deal with the windows, spend the money on energy systems on all of your campuses. Or the second option is you take one campus, you deal with the windows and the HVAC because they're really combined in a lot of ways. You know, if you don't replace the windows, the HVAC is going to work on top of it. You have lots of air, you have condensation, you have air quality issues. It's the two kind of go hand in hand. So as you look at the budget, you'll kind of see why we're recommending that. So part of what we are asking the board to give us some direction, because we can run with either one of those options, but we just need some direction. Now I will say, if you go with the option to do windows and HVAC on campus, which gets your building in decent shape, there's no issues on all our campuses. You're not going to get all of your campus. You would be lucky, Walter, you jump in, you get half of it. So at that point, half of your campus is in really good shape. From window and HVAC perspective, and then you have half of your campuses in light production. So that's the downfall. And if you, let me just point this out, and I'm going to let Walter get up and talk about HVAC. I know Gary Bailey has been the project manager on this, and he's been working with y'all for a while. They put together some budget numbers early on, and their total budget numbers were about 22 million, something like that, just with HVAC. They're about 4 to 5 million for this. As you'll see, as Walter gets into this, our numbers for HVAC right now are right at that 22 million, and that doesn't include a lot, so it's only going up. So I think we have some hard decisions to make in terms of how we approach the project. Are there any questions on that before Walter gets in? And you can always ask him as well.
I want to ask Dr. Brown, those schools with boilers, that's Greenwood High School, that's Threadgill Primary, and what's the other school, Claudine Brown? You know the schools with the boilers?
With the boilers, that's
Threadgill Primary as well. Threadgill Primary, Greenwood High School, Threadgill Elementary School.
So Claudine Brown wasn't on?
I don't think
No,
so.
it was Bankston.
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 Boiler Center.
Greenwood High School, Threadgill,
Primary.
Threadgill,
With the boiler system.
and we have looked at those systems in depth, and Walter can talk to you about that.
Since we're on the subject of boilers, we did look at the boiler system.
Can we get you all a microphone, like that red one behind you?
They are quite aged. Just
Okay.
so we did look at the boilers. They are quite aged. The rusted, the pipes. We did see some suspect asbestos on some of the piping. So yeah, that's some of the boilers were down at the time. Of course, the day that we were there was a warm day, so I'm not sure what kind of maintenance you have to do on those things to keep them up. They're 40 years old. So some of them are that old. Some of them have been replaced. But the pumping system, the piping, and is quite deteriorated. Go back to the schools. We did a best case. I'm sorry. Go ahead to the next one. We did a best case, worst case scenario as well, and we found that Greenwood Middle, East Elementary, Davis Elementary, and the Career Tech are probably your best case schools. Worst case schools were Greenwood High, Bankston, Threadgill, basically the ones with the boiler systems in them. Boiler
So
systems.
you saying that, but Claudine, Claudine Brown is not on there.
Claudine Brown, well, of the 13 schools, those schools would fall right in the middle.
Okay.
These would be what we consider the worst case and the best case. So the other schools would fall in that mid-range. Not to say that they don't need attention, but in our opinion, then these are the schools, both best case and worst case. This is just an example of some of your boiler systems. I know this is kind of hard to see, but this is some of the conditions of your boiler systems there on the top left. The example of a rooftop unit at Bankston Elementary is just deteriorated. A hail damage. They've got hail damage on some of the fins on the outside condensing unit fins. We did notice that several of the schools have some type of temporary air filtration or air conditioning in the classrooms and in the corridors. The picture on the lower right-hand side is a rooftop unit that has been modified to provide cooling from external condensing units. So that unit has been modified. It's just working on an external condensing unit as opposed to the compressors and condensers that come inside the unit. And some of that, there's more pictures in the report that will kind of show. ASHRAE gives us a equipment life expectancy chart, and for the window units that you have, it's about 15 years. There are several classrooms that have window units that are well over 15 years. Rooftop equipment, single zone that you have is about 15 years, and your boiler systems are about 24 years. And some of those boiler systems have been in these schools for 30 years or so, or more. And some of the rooftop units, I took dates that were available off of some of the rooftop units. Some of them had dates of 1991. There were a few in the 1980s. So they have well past their life expectancy. This is the ventilation. I think the ESSER funds is more or less ventilation and not equipment conditions. This table comes from the mechanical code. ASHRAE also has this same ventilation code, and the code allows two different types of ventilations, which is an open window, which you have now. The problem with open windows is that in the wintertime, they're not open. And the problem with open windows is that air that's coming into the classroom is not filtered, it's not conditioned. So whatever's on the outside is getting into the classroom and into the building. This just kind of goes through an example of what the airflow rates would be, and this is what we would use to calculate the ventilation rates of each classroom. This is an example of the spreadsheets that you'll find in your report. We went through every building, on top of every building, took down model numbers, names, those that were available to us, or those that were legible on the equipment. So that information is in that report that you have. The possible implementations, John talked a little bit about implementation of these ESSER funds. And other options are available. In the report, there are several scenarios that we could go through. We could go through condition of equipment, which there again, there's your top four and your bottom four. You're asking about the other schools. You'll see that those other schools fall in the middle of this ranking. Another option that consideration is you may want to go high school to primary school, or vice versa. You may want to go elementary school to high school. So we're looking for some direction as to how you want to spend these funds. HVAC concerns. John talked about the windows. not doing the windows, but doing the HVAC only. From an HVAC standpoint, we would recommend to do the windows and the HVAC. Consider this. If you're air conditioning your house, do you have open windows? If you're heating your house, do you have open windows? Well, that's what you're looking at if you don't address the window situation. And if we cool the classrooms to a point, then we run the risk of condensation on both the glass and the steel frames, and so there's some issues there. If we don't address the windows, then the equipment is going to be oversized, which is both cost ineffective and inefficient to accommodate the HVAC. The units are going to be oversized. Roof structure. We don't know that the roof structure is capable of handling rooftop units. If it can't, there are other options. We can go with what's called a variable refrigerant system, which will give the building simultaneous capability of heating and cooling. Whereas now, on your boiler system, being a two-pipe system, it's either on or it's off. Another recommendation that we make of HVAC concerns is that if we spread out this work over all of the campuses, it's going to escalate the cost of the project, because a contractor is going to have to mobilize on 12 or 13 campuses, and that's going to escalate the cost of the project. Another thing about spreading it out over multiple campuses is contractor capability to do the manual. Does he have enough employees to spread out over 12 campuses to do the work? So, HVAC recommendations are to replace the current HVAC systems with HVAC equipment that is equal to or better than the capacity that you have now, and to remove the hot water boiler systems, because they're just so inefficient. Now, this John talked a little bit about the cost. This cost breakdown is in your report, and just the HVAC comes up to right at $23 million. That's for all of the schools. Now, if we break down the schools and include the windows and such, that's added to each respective school. Now, this estimate does not include general contractors, general conditions, demolition, the structural support. We don't know if the structural will even support a rooftop unit. Electrical upgrades. The electrical systems are as antiquated as the school is. And the architectural components that are going to be involved, John will have to put in new ceilings, painting, and such as that are not included. And so if we go school by school, then we can develop a more realistic breakdown of what each school campus would cost.
Hey, Walter, can I interject something?
Sure.
Keep in mind that estimate is just a base square foot estimate.
It is a square foot estimate.
It's based on what we generally know at this time, and obviously, as we get into it, start to define the systems more. And those numbers could go.
Yeah.
I hesitate to say they're going to go down.
Yeah. Right.
You just have to understand those numbers and where we are in the process.
Excuse me, this might be out of subject from exactly what you're talking about, but Dr. Brown, when you mentioned hail damage, was there any insurance that was ever claimed on this? I mean,
Well, I don't know
I mean,
that,
you would-
but probably not. I mean, the fins on them have been damaged. It's not like the units are destroyed, but units today come with what's called a hail guard that goes on the outside of the condensing unit fins that will, keep those fins protected.
Go ahead, Dr. Moore.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I do have a question about the cost of
the high schools. I can't see that too well, but I was just wondering, would there be like an itemized, place in here where we could look at possible costs of just the high schools? And I guess I'm looking at that because, and my mind is going back to this bond issue, that we will, probably look forward to, trying to move this year. But I'm just trying to get a cost of what it would cost, I guess a total estimate of the cost for the high schools.
There is a cost estimate in the HVAC report.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
There it is right there.
Okay.
That's that same, slide.
Elementary school.
We will, but the goal with the estimates and the prices is right now to give you kind of a broad stroke, because that's where we're at. And to make some decisions in terms of how to approach it. You say, okay, look, we're hoping for HVAC, and we're gonna come back and say, okay, let's start here at this school, and then move down until the funding is done. As we develop the project and develop exactly what we're doing, we'll be able to give good, solid estimates that include all of this into that. Right now, we just don't know it.
Ms. Lewis.
So I have a question. Dr. Brown, what's the total amount of money that's available for this project? Dr. Cooley.
For ESSER 3, the district had approximately 18 million for this particular, for construction and HVAC. ESSER 2, total amount that the district is about, I want to say 8 to 10 maybe. And then I'll have to get on. I'll have to look at ESSER 1, but 2 and 3, I can tell you probably roughly with the 18, I'll say maybe 25 to 30.
You saying still available?
Well, that's what it was allotted. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what was still.
So my question is, so it's my opinion, I don't know how anybody else thinks, to put new HVAC units into these schools, new windows, when you have multiple other problems, it's just like putting a Band-Aid on the school. Now, my question would be, in the event there is a new bill in the future, could some of these funds be used on a new bill and then maybe concentrate on some of the other schools? Is that a possibility? Can you split the funding?
From my understanding, as long as it's used for the allowable cost for the HVAC, then that I don't see, and I have not heard any issues with that. But it just can't be used for framing the,
Right. I think I remember Gary Bailey stating that we could use these funds if we decided to go with a bond issue and come up with a new school or schools, that we could use this funding.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The other consideration might be, I know there are some deadlines in terms of when you've got to spend these funds. So the question might be, those deadlines might come quicker than your,
So Dr. Pulley, do you have the deadline?
We have until 2024 on ESSER 2. It's 2 years out from when we receive it, so I know at the earliest would be 2024. We may have until 24-25 school year is what.
Is it to expend or to obligate?
that would be to expend.
So board members, I can appreciate what, Ms. Lewis has just said, and just looking at the plan, in my opinion, from what we've seen, I just think the priority schools would be those schools with the boiler system, and that's my opinion, and you spoke of asbestos.
On some of them.
On some of them.
Suspects. Some of them have been abated.
Okay. So in my opinion, board members, I would feel like we would get rid of our problem areas first, and that would be, Dr. Brown, if I'm wrong, Greenwood High School, Greenwood High School, Threadgill Primary,
Greenville Elementary,
and Bankston is the number one. Yes. Okay. So now that's my opinion.
That's my opinion, Mr. When you say HVAC in the windows of the road,
Yes.
I ain't good.
Yes. Dr. Bailey?
Madam President, as I've said before, I'm strictly against putting money into a black hole. You're not only dealing with HVAC and window issues, you're potentially going to deal with structure issues and a whole host of other things. We've spent over $500,000 on roofs, so I'm simply against putting money into these old buildings. It's like having a 86 Chevy and you're talking about you're going to put some 25-inch rims on it because they look good. At some point, as I continue to say, our children deserve the very best that we can provide, and a bond issue, in my opinion, is the way to go to provide these kids with what is necessary and conducive to learning.
And I agree with you as well, Dr. Bailey, and this board has already discussed, and if I'm not incorrect, I feel like I'm correct about saying that the majority of this board has already voted that we are looking for a high school, a premier high school, and so we do know that some schools will still be open, so some of this money will have to go to some schools because we're looking for a high school, not elementaries or not middle school.
And if we had the bond issue passed immediately, we're not gonna get that school for a while. I mean, we gotta do something. We had to
Right.
this year about the air with our students.
Madam President?
Go ahead, Dr.
And
Bailey.
again, if I may, it's 2021. I think we've been talking about a bond issue for 2 years. We wait another 2 years, we're still gonna be talking about a bond issue. So I understand your point, but there's no action being taken.
Well, Dr. Bailey, you've been on this board, so I'm very sure you know why no action has been taken, but that's neither here or there. The board is in a majority of wanting to pass a bond issue, am I correct?
Madam President, I apologize, but I'm not aware of why no action has been taken.
You're not aware of what?
Why no action has been taken.
Okay, you may proceed.
This slide represents a best case scenario if we got into design and how long it would take. So the top two are the actual development of the documents, which would carry us through the middle of April. In that time, we would advertise for bid and evaluation of the bid results, which would carry us right to the end of school. The contract award and submittal process would take approximately 4 weeks. Ordering the equipment, if he ordered the equipment, now delivery time is between 16 and 20 weeks or longer on certain equipment, larger equipment. So if the contractor were to start in the middle of June and he had 32 weeks to complete, you're talking about a full year of design and construction. So we would be about here this time next year completing that construction.
And keep in mind, that does not take into account the fact that those students will be occupied. And how that affects what we do is significant. So in my mind, well, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of a realistic scenario would be they start construction when they actually start implementing the
design done and a contractor on board, I'm thinking January of 2023, he could get his equipment ordered, and when school, the last day of school, when the kids walk out, he walks in and he can get it done in 3 months.
And you say 2023.
If the contract was awarded to the contractor in January of 2023, he could use that winter to get submittals and order equipment, get equipment in before the end of school. And that way, on the last day of school, when the bell rings, he steps in, the students step out, and he's got full reign of the schools for the whole summer.
Just kind of wrap this up, I'm just going to rehash what we need from y'all. We've been hired to do windows and HVAC, which is what we're looking for. We need some direction in terms of what are the priorities, whether it includes just HVAC or HVAC and window. Once we have that direction from the board, we will hit the ground hard on developing the design. The other thing I want y'all to keep in mind, and I didn't mention it, is a significant number of the buildings are over 50 years old. And if they're over 50 years old, they are under the auspices of this Department of Accreditation, which means they have a say-so in what to do when it comes to everything. But the windows are the most.
Well, that and the external appearance. The historical register may not let us put rooftop units on, but there are other options for HVAC. There's a VRF system that we can do. We'll just have to reach out to them and get them to direct us on what we can and what we can't do for the upgrade.
So to go back to your question, is like on sale like Greenwood High School, one reason we can't give you a real solid number on windows at this point, we don't exactly know what we're going to do. Look, like Greenwood High School is a fairly significant building. The architect designed that building is fairly well known, and that building is definitely on the radar with our guys' issues. So they're going to have analysis in terms of what we do next week. So that obviously influences costs as well. So really, we're just looking for that direction. And as soon as you give us that direction, we'll keep on moving.
We thank you so much.
Thank you.
And board members, as you can see, we got to put our heads together to see what direction to go in, dealing with the HVAC and window upgrade and replacement, and dealing with the structure. As you all just said, the older the building, some things that you can't do. So we just got to put our heads together and think what's the best way to keep our children cool and hot.
Well, if you have any more questions or need additional information, just reach out to us. We'll get you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And board members also keep in mind that the bond issue that Dr. Bailey is talking about, that we have been trying to get. Thank you, sir. So we got to keep in mind. At this time, Jack Lewis, say you had something to say.
Yeah, Dr. Brown, on Monday, Dr. Moore and I went out to Greenwood High, and, we walked through every wing, and when it's an able classroom. There are, in fact, some cold classrooms out there. Some of them did have heat, and I guess it was due to the units that were installed. But I think due to the square footage of it, of the rooms, the units probably are not large enough to be compatible with those rooms. So, I mean, we did observe a couple of teachers who had like little small personal heaters, and it was extremely cold in those rooms. And I think on that particular day, it was not as cold. And And, also, we did notice that some tiles were out, and maybe if they had been replaced, we might be able to keep some of that heat in there. So, at this time, are there any updates on whatever it's gonna take to get it where it needs to be?
Well, possibly purchasing, I'm not sure, I can't answer how they could maybe install a second or a larger heater. I don't know if it would, Ms. Gear will have to respond to that, but I will ask if they could look into or check into purchasing some larger heaters for the rooms. As far as the tiles, I looked at the repair request, but I also sent each principal as well as maintenance, a repair request. Mr. Gear did state that they were looking for tiles. I do have some expected dates of completion, so checking back with each principal to make sure that when maintenance says that it's done, it's done. But right now, they are looking for tiles to replace.
Okay.
And see it.
Also, the part that they were waiting on for the boiler system, that I think we discussed earlier, what's the status? Do you have a status on that?
No, I didn't know that question was coming, but I can definitely ask Mr. Gear.
Okay.
I remember, I think he said that it was, that they hadn't received it, but I will check today.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So, Dr. Brown, are there other, rooms available that those people, students and staff wouldn't have to be in such a extreme cold room?
Well, to my understanding, unless you saw something different, the rooms that could have been cold didn't have students in them. The students were moved. But if the heaters are not putting out enough air, it's just a matter of finding a way to either purchase larger units to put in those classrooms, or I just think purchasing larger units at this point, but I'll get with Mr. Johnson to see if that's possible.
Something else, Dr. Brown, we did notice that the library and the cafeteria were spaces available. Would that be an option for some of those classrooms, that are extremely cold?
So cafeteria.
Cafeteria and the library.
I need to check with the principal to see, which rooms are still cold with the heating units, and then see where we need to move students if needed. But if the heating units in some classes with larger square footage are not heating, then again, that's a matter of purchasing a different unit. But I check with the principal.
And what about the auditorium? I'm saying, is that available to have classes?
The auditorium is available, but again, I still need to speak with the principal first to see.
You know, we don't want students and staff in rooms, from what Ms. Lewis and Dr. Moore observed, and they said it was extremely cold. And, so maybe Mr. Gary's not aware that those rooms, or did he, go through every room to see?
Are you asking, did he go to every room? See, I would have to call him and ask him if he went to every room, but I'm sure he has walked the campus as well. And just depending on the day, may very well be cold in some places. I know the day that we walked the campus, it was cool in the hallways, and the classrooms were warm. But now, as I stated before, it was cool in the hallways. Those classrooms that didn't have children or that weren't being used, we did not enter those. But I'll speak with Mr. Principal and get back with the board.
Okay, thank you so much. And once again, just listen to those guys. We know we won't be building this year, so, but we do want our children and our teachers to be warm when teaching and learning is taking place. Dr. Brown.
Next, you have a board policy BCBD board meeting agenda.
What page
second page of your pack.
And board members, this is the policy that I brought up the other day, and it's just dealing with making sure that there are no conflict of interest when we're voting. Want to make sure that, dealing with ethics, that we do everything that is correct. Any questions, board members? Dr. Brown?
Next, you have the review of the agenda for the regular board meeting of Tuesday, February 1st, 2022. First, you have call to order and invocation, approval of the agenda, superintendent's report. Beginning on page 5, you have your school at risk report, and page 8, the additional targeted supports and interventions. Ms. Coleman is here for questions.
At this time, our schools, under school improvement, and our school improvement specialists are attending training that will bring back updates as it relates to school improvement efforts. Both of those schools have shown great improvement in the area of student achievement, and we look forward to them moving out of the school improvement designation.
Madam President, I have a question.
Go ahead, Dr. Moore.
How you doing, Ms. Coleman?
Fine.
Tell me, how much longer do we have, will East and Leflore Elementary be a part of this particular entity?
Well, they're under review each year as it relates to them taking state assessments and could possibly come out of school improvement this year.
Okay, under review this year.
Yes, ma'am, they're reviewed each time they take state assessments.
Okay.
Our 3 SIG schools are no longer under those designations, and so we have these 2 schools. As soon as they correct those errors that got them into this, into school improvement, then they can be removed from it. They just need to show success and improvement.
Okay. So, the description of showing success, would that be in regard to, how they do well, how well they do with the, with test scores?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's, we're still looking at that bottom tier, how well we fare with that bottom tier?
Well, it's all students, but the bottom tier of students to get us the greatest number of points and growth. So
Okay.
we have some strict and deliberate and strategic strategies specifically for those students, but we must move all students. And one of the schools' special population of students and students with disabilities will be strictly focused on, and in another area is strictly the overall improvement of all student achievement. So it's going to take each student meeting their growth target, but we can gain the greatest points in growth if we're playing the numbers game to come out of accreditation or those designations. So we're doing well. If we were to look at the current district assessments, those schools would be out of those school improvement designations at this time. So if they just continue to do what they've done all year by improving on every assessment and do so at the end of the year in May, we expect that these schools will successfully move from school improvement.
If growth target is not met, how will that impact our possible grading, and how will that impact these 2 schools if growth target is not met? Because I know we've had these on our agenda now for some time, and I was just wondering, and we've received data on them each meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
But I'm just concerned with COVID-19 and
Yes, ma'am.
all of the outlier variables that have been presented to us, we've dealt with since 2019-20. So I'm just hopeful right now, but I was just wondering, if we do not meet the growth target, how would this impact these two schools, and how would that impact the grading for this district?
If these schools do not meet those growth targets, then we stand a chance of the State Department coming in and telling us exactly what to do in these places. If there was no COVID, then MDE would be in the district to provide additional support. The School Improvement Office is looking to increase the number of their school improvement support systems. The coach that we formerly had for the 3 SIG schools, and many of those people in that department were dissolved. They dissolved those positions. They have since notified us that they are looking to regain and open the Office of School Improvement from the state level at a greater capacity to provide assistance to individual school districts. So what we have done is our school improvement specialist is teaching at these schools. We have chiefs and specialists teaching at the schools, our school improvement officers, and we have designated external providers to work with those schools in specific areas. With Leflore Elementary, we were able to begin this task during the summer months with school improvement funds. East Elementary School did not qualify for those funds, so we have to put additional efforts using school staff that are already in place. For example, we have one person working with science, 3 people working in math at East, and 1 in ELA. So we're using more school district staff for East because no additional funds were awarded. With Leflore Elementary, federal funds were awarded for school improvement, and so they have, in addition to school staff, more external providers. So we developed an action plan, and we're implementing the plan. We are seeing improvement in those areas, and we anticipate meeting those growth targets. As a former school improvement principal, I can tell you that we do not want the state to come in to provide that oversight in doing just the basic things that we know to do to increase student achievement. So the team is working.
So is this all encompassing of accreditation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
And
can
so
you speak
those-
a little bit to how this would impact our accreditation as well?
So
You know,
that-
I just know that East and Leflore, we've had them atop our radar for some time now, and I just want, I just want the board, to know
Yes, ma'am.
where we are, just in case it doesn't go as planned. So
Absolutely.
how can you speak to how this would affect our accreditation?
Yes, ma'am.
Now we've spoken to the other two, and then I had one last question. Accreditation 1, and then how long have the chiefs been in place assisting and supporting? So can you speak a little bit about, to how would this impact our accreditation, just in case we don't meet our goals, and then how long have the chiefs been in place assisting and supporting?
All right. First question, as it relates to accreditation. Last year we were held harmless because the state assessments were not counted, or all components of the growth model were not calculated. So that's one. But if scores were counted and will be counted this testing season, the scores are averaged with all of the other schools in the district. Although Leflore Elementary and East did not fare well based on the accountability model, the district still rated as a C. So you take all schools and what they do, and there's an average or a certain number of points. It's not an exact average, but if we achieve a certain number of points, that's how the district achieves its accreditation rate.
Okay.
So it will be calculated and included in what the district does. We're working hard for at least 600 points that will give the district a B rating. So when we add or calculate all scores for elementary schools, meaning East and Leflore, we count for them ELA, math, and science. So their ELA, math, and science are added to all of the other ELA, math, and science with the rest of the district, and then we get a rating. So when every school must do their part to positively contribute to the success of the district. So yes, we put a laser focus on East and Leflore, but all schools desire, or we need that same focus. To your second question, we began interventions with these schools last year during the summer. So after the students took state assessments, we did training with teachers. They were able to do some additional learning with students during the summer. Some teachers did some volunteer. And when school started back in session, we aggressively began the interventions with these schools in October because we knew that the stakes were much higher with these two schools as it is with the other schools.
So the chiefs have been in place since October?
I can name specific people who worked at certain schools. I can't say all chiefs, but we chose the people with the elementary backgrounds that could work with Leflore and East.
One question, statement you made, district being a C average.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we still utilizing that C from before we consolidate?
Yes, ma'am. We still hold that designation as the state has decided that we will. All districts are still holding that same designation. So there's a great push this year for state testing to be live, to get a better account of where everyone is in counting every component of the accountability model, being proficiency, growth of all students, and growth of that bottom tier number of students.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Coleman, due to the rigor needed, I want to know at East and Leflore, are all the teachers in those areas certified?
Are all teachers certified? No, ma'am. Not all teachers are certified. All support staff to those schools are certified. If I can name at East, the person providing the science intervention is a successful science teacher who serves in another capacity in the district. I'm trying not to name names, but this young man has a proven track record of success in science, and they have a science consultant. In the area of math, we noticed that at East, our performance at math was the lowest. The principal has a math background and provides tutorial to a specific number of students. The assistant principal does the same with a former math teacher with a track record of success as a math teacher. The school improvement specialist who has a track record of success in math at the middle school, elementary, and high school levels and provides tutorial. And the chief of ELA is there for East in the area of ELA. Very well accomplished and provides engaging strategies. At Leflore Elementary, their team of math teachers are stronger, so a lot of the efforts are in ELA and science, more so than in math. The assistant principal, a proven science teacher with a successful track record and achievement, is providing tutorial there. In ELA, the principal and the instructional coach, both with strong backgrounds in ELA, are providing ELA instruction as well as consulting. We've also sought one external provider that's been working with that school since last year. That principal, after becoming principal of a school and school improvement, reached out to that external provider and had that provider agree to volunteer her professional services to support their efforts in the areas of math. That person teaches face-to-face and virtually and is basically doing it free of charge. So there's been a rally around these two schools. The administrators in those buildings are steadfast. Forgot the instructional coach at East Elementary with the math background. So the teachers are very well supported. We've developed a climate and culture of co-teaching in those buildings. So everyone, reach one, teach one. We're working together as a staff. All of us are working with students. We're having data meetings and we're communicating with the students by way of student data cards, parents by way of parent meetings, and weekly PLC meetings with staff and quarterly data tracking or data presentations and meetings with staff members. They are doing those things that we know to do so that they can improve student achievement. I don't anticipate that we're going to have student achievement issues, and we're not going to have to worry about the state coming in to monitor us. We're monitoring ourselves at this point.
But the answer is that there are no certified teachers at East and Leflore in those areas.
Did not say that. They have certified teachers.
They do have
but
certified.
I cannot answer if every person is certified.
No.
I do know that the subject area teachers who are responsible for a tested area have a standard license or a one-year non-renewable license. So those responsible for 3rd through 6th grade, the tested areas, have standard licenses in hand, current licenses. But
Okay.
I can't say that every teacher in the building has a license. I can't answer that.
Ms. Nelson, my question kind of piggybacks what you're saying. What is being done for content training for instructors? Not teaching techniques, content training.
Could you please repeat the question?
What is being done for content training for instructors?
Capacity building among the teachers. Some of the training happens with some of the external providers. Some are happening with chiefs and specialists who actually go in and model and co-teach lessons with teachers. Some of the teachers are actually participating in training that's provided, some of the training events that they're allowed to attend.
That's actual content?
That's content based off of the subject area that they teach. So if I teach math, then the math chief will do professional development for me, model a lesson, co-teach. Especially on Wednesdays, we have designated Wednesdays where those individuals get to go and see it live. We've also provided peer observations where teachers who are struggling in an area can observe a peer to learn a strategy based on the content knowledge.
And I think that's great. You have to have strategy, but you got to have the content knowledge at the bottom line of that. And that's my concern, is the ability to know the material. I know we teach people how to get that material across, but it's like making a cake. I can say you need eggs and flour and milk and oil, but if you don't know what eggs are, you don't make the cake.
Our struggle is our teachers teach. Our struggle is teaching them strategies that will yield the greatest result as relates to how students are tested. So for example, when we took tests when we were in school, you had a math problem, it was great. You solved the problem, you arrived at an answer, it was one step. Today's math problems or math questions are 3 to 4 multi-steps. So question 1 may have 4 steps and is worth 2 points on the state test. Question 2 may have 5 or 6 steps or performance-based steps where you have to do several things to arrive at an answer, and it may be worth 5 points. So it's not that the teachers are not teaching. We need to work with them more with teaching to the rigor of the test and teaching them in a way that students will be tested. The majority of our math tests and problems don't necessarily have numbers on them. They're alphabets and letters and figures. And so we're moving to a more critical way of thinking and arriving at answers even in the area of math. Students do algebra now in kindergarten. That's just a fact. And the truth is, the way that many of our veteran teachers were taught, this is new math. The way that students are assessed now is not the exact same way that they were taught or trained to teach math when they began. So our teachers are in a constant wave of learning and relearning and retraining themselves so that they can work with students who will be tested at a more rigorous pace.
Ms. Coleman, given 7th through 12th grade across the district, what is the percentage of students who would reach affective objectives?
Repeat that question. How many students, 7th through 12th grade?
7th through 12th, percentage of students that you think would reach affective objectives in learning.
When you say affective objectives,
The top level of knowledge, not just the knowledge, but the top level of learning, affective level. They can put the concepts together, they can reason with rational thinking, analytical thinking. What percentage of our students do you think can do that?
I wouldn't venture to say what percentage of students. I wouldn't know that. We assess them as it relates to the state, Algebra 1, Biology, U.S. History, and English 2. And
Well, my concern is, if we're teaching to make sure we're making the points on the test, that we're staying at a knowledge level. We never go higher on the tier, the taxonomy of it, yes.
when students are assessed, a certain number of questions are, the majority of test items are taught at various DOKs. You got your DOK 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
1 being basic
Right.
and move forward. The majority of your test questions are at a DOK 2 and 3 level. So we don't teach at just the DOK 1. The majority of the test items will be DOK 2 and 3. And for those students to achieve that high effective model or designation that you're asking about, the top tier, they're going to have to get the DOK level 4 questions right as well. And so that's going to mean they can't miss very many questions. Every year, the cohort of students who test and the accomplishment or achievement of that assessment or the percentage will change based on cohort. So you could literally get 50 questions on a 60 question test right this year and receive high ratings. Next year, get 52 questions correct and not be designated high rating. You've improved, but based on your grade level and cohort, it's not the same. That target, it shifts to some degree every level. In the past, we would be able to tell students without a doubt, you will take a test, there will be 50 questions. If you get 30 right, you pass. We no longer can do that because every question is worth a different number of points. For example, on a reading test, 12 points come from the writing. Some questions are worth more than one. So there's no I cannot tell a student, if you get 30 right, then you met your target. Or on a 50 question test, you get 40 right, you met your target. It depends on the type of question and what question it is. So when we're talking about the DOK levels, we strive to teach to the DOK level 3 at the proficient level, but we also, when we're doing our remediation of students, for example, the chiefs and specialists and external providers, they're working to guarantee that we get the DOK level 2 questions right. Because if you get those right, you can pass. And then the DOK 3 and 4 level questions will determine if you're a proficient student or advanced student.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Lewis.
Ms. Coleman, we know that East and Leflore Elementary are schools that are struggling. So they asked a question about certified teachers.
Yes, ma'am.
So my question would be, at these two schools, do you have highly qualified teachers in these areas?
In the tested areas,
Uh-huh.
we absolutely do, because that's part of the school improvement model. Yeah, you have to put the best teachers you have in place in those, we call them transformational leaders for the administrators.
Mm-hmm.
We also have transformational leaders in the classroom. And last year, we made some adjustment in staff to address those problems areas that we identified. Because this test was not counted last year, this gave us more time to perfect and put people in place that could get the job done.
So outside these two schools, do you have highly qualified teachers in the other tested areas in other schools?
Not in every location. Some are permanent subs. We have some teachers out for various reasons, maternity leave, sick leave, whatever. We do have permanent subs, and we do have some teachers that have served in those capacities that may have been on one-year non-renewable licenses and lost them, but still have the content knowledge where they can teach. We're also working with some performance-based learning teachers. These are teachers who are not highly qualified, don't have the license, but have shown a certain level of success, and they're working towards certification with the state.
And they are in those tested areas?
Some of them, yes. Some, yes, absolutely. They will have 3-year licenses at the end of their training. They do a year-long training with MDE in addition to all requirements within the district.
Okay.
And many of those are in school and participating in MAT programs somewhere.
Okay.
One more question, Madam President. how have we provided training to parents for this very rigorous and tough time in our children's lives at these two schools? Have we provided them not just meetings, but actually formal training to, so that they could help assist and support their children at home?
Yes, ma'am, we do have P16 councils, not as aggressive as we were before the Omicron environment. We had begun to have face-to-face parent meetings, and now we're back to the virtual meetings. It's just difficult to have those large groups of parents in. What we've done is we've tried to capture the parents in smaller groups. We do it during MTSS meetings where we discuss with the parents their individual child's progress. We try to take advantage of parent conference days when school is out of session, and we can meet with those parents. And we've even done some home visits with some parents where we couldn't get them out. We go to the house, we knock on the door, and our social workers have helped us with that effort. But we've tried to keep those groups smaller. And if there are instances where students are struggling, to keep those conferences smaller. But many of those schools are doing several things. We're doing newsletters to get the data out to the parents. The students are required to keep data cards. Parents are encouraged to sign those data cards saying that they had conversations with their students about the progress. They can get extra points if the parent signs saying or acknowledging receipt of those data cards, which shows the progress of the student from one assessment to the next assessment. Some of the things that we've done to encourage participation with parents and progress of students, you'll see on our Facebook and web pages, students receiving academic achievement awards for honor roll, spelling bee, reading fair, just all of those academic things, trying to put the focus on academics because the parents can't be there at the volume that they were before the pandemic. And now that the Omicron variant is upon us, we're trying to be as careful with parents as possible.
Thank you.
Dr. Brown?
Next, we have approval of we have the 16th section land report, which begins on page 11. Page 12, you have the approval of the 2022-2023 school district calendar, which is in your attachments. What you have here on the top page in color is the calendar that was voted on by the district meaning faculty and staff, so they chose calendar A. If you flip over to pages 4 and 5, you'll see how faculty and staff voted. And at the back of this document, you'll see the options that they had. Calendar A, no President's Day, is basically the difference. And option B is President's Day. And they chose calendar A.
Okay, Dr. Brown.
Next, you have approval of mileage reimbursement rates. This was prepared by Mr. Johnson to include vehicle mileage reimbursement rates effective January 1st. Included is a memorandum from the Department of Finance and Instruction, which gives information about mileage reimbursement rates effective January 1st of 2022. You also have included our district forms, requests for travel, and reimbursement of travel documents.
So what's the difference?
With the documents.
Mm-hmm.
One is they have to fill out before they go to travel, they have to fill out to be approved to travel. And when they come back, they submit a reimbursement to receive any funds that.
Okay.
Next, you have page 19. Permission to remove food service equipment from inventory to sale.
Okay.
Quick question, Madam President.
Go ahead, Dr. Moore.
Have we been successful in, selling when we have to, do these, removal of equipment? How successful have we been for purchases?
From my understanding, with maintenance we have, I need to check on food service. I'm not sure, what has been sold in the food service area, but we have been successful with selling, removed items for maintenance or discarded items.
Okay, what happens if we are unable to sell our equipment? How is it discarded? Do we know?
We could discard it once it's removed, but we'll do everything we can to get it sold. Okay, page 21, you have approval to submit reimbursement requests for bus drivers and/or aides for the Special Olympics. Dr. Pruitt.
Each year, our students participate in the Special Olympics. Last year, we did not do it due to the pandemic. It was canceled. This year, we've been informed that it will go on. And so this particular request is one that we're making so that we're able to send in the reimbursement request to the state office. And so they would just reimburse us for those particular costs of bus travel, the driver, and a bus aid if necessary.
Dr. Brown.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, page 23, approval of inventory removal of Chromebooks. Dr. Pruitt.
These, there are 14 devices received from, that we received checks from the time period of December 6th through January 20th, and the total is listed. And as an update from, I think, one of the last meetings, we have been compiling that list of devices and the cost, so that when we continue to make orders, we make large orders instead of just 2 at a time.
Dr. Brown.
Page 44, approval of Reach Mississippi Memorandums of Understanding. Ms. Cole.
The Reach Mississippi, our MTSS specialist was able to secure the Reach Mississippi grant for all 12 schools in the district. Each school will be trained to address specific learning needs and styles of students to increase student achievement. At each quarter, each school will be required to submit documentation. These are things that are already required by the state, and each school will gain $375 per quarter to support and to incentivize students for improved behavior in school. The Reach Mississippi does require each school and the district to enter into an MOU, and they want to make sure that we follow through with what we're supposed to be doing, but these things are already required and we're doing it.
Dr. Brown, I think we skipped approval of educator and resident.
Educating residents, this is a program that we have participated in past years. This particular person serves as a literacy coach, and we are reimbursed for those services at the primary school.
This is something we do every year.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Dr. Brown, we can go on to page 81.
Okay, 81, monthly financial reports, Mrs. Washington.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We have our monthly financial reports included in your pack. Again, it's your cash balance, fund balance, budget, status report, cash flow statement, your bank reconciliation report, and your claim document for the month of February. Does the board have any questions?
No questions, Dr. Brown.
Page 229, you have your consent agenda. Your consent agenda will include your minutes from the special call board meeting of Tuesday, January 11th of 2022, minutes of the regular school board meeting of Tuesday, January 11th of 2022, the minutes of special call board meeting of Friday, January 21st of 2022, the minutes of the work session of Wednesday, January 26th of 2022. Next, you have consideration of executive session.
Board members, I really don't think, you were saying something about more. Okay. At this time, I don't think there's any reason for us to go. Have consideration of the executive session. Am I correct, board members? Dr. Brown, you may proceed.
Page 230, you have your personnel recommendations.
Any questions about the recommendation, board members? No questions, Dr. Brown.
Next, we'll move back to the work session agenda, hybrid schedule options. Board members, before we move forward, we want to get your input on possible options if we are to use the hybrid schedule. In your packet you have, an option A, and the option A will actually include face-to-face for all students Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, virtual on Wednesdays and Fridays. All faculty and staff must report to work on all days. Option B will give you all students in school Mondays through Thursdays, and the virtual option for students on Fridays. Faculty and staff must report to work on all days. We wanted to look at those two options for a hybrid if the hybrid is needed, but to also get input from the board as we create a calendar for hybrid if that's what the direction we're going.
In my opinion, if I had to vote, I would vote option A due to the numbers. That would give a break, and when I'm saying a break, I'm talking about as far as the spread of COVID from student to teacher or teacher to student. My vote would be option A. And then the question I would ask is, because I see you said faculty and staff must report on all day, but what if the number is high in that building? Would you do school by school?
Yes, ma'am. We will continue to follow the guidelines and quarantine and have our staff continue virtually, but from home, if that happens.
Okay. Any other comments, board members?
Dr. Brown, do we have any documented evidence as to how our students are how they are interacting and engaging virtually versus face-to-face. And then that is in lieu of we're coming up with this testing season. And I can ask if have we seen an increase in the last week or so? I do know that that's been monitored pretty aggressively since we've been back from into the new year, but do we have any evidence how our students are faring virtually versus face-to-face? And look, I got it. I think we all have it, but this is a testing season. And I just am very, very, very concerned in looking at our numbers for our two schools that have been, we've been monitoring for the last couple of years. How can we, I just want to know the documented evidence that we have with students in school versus out of school. Do we have any test results? Did we notice any decreases, any increases when they were virtually versus face-to-face?
What I can do, Dr. Moore, is provide the board with a report, go back and just gather the information for you so that you can have a report. If you would like for me to present it during the board meeting, but I can get it to the board as soon as we complete it.
I know we are in this thing, but it's not just us, it's everyone. And we have to keep in mind that this is a testing year. And I am just, I'm trying to be goal-oriented and minded and to make sure that our students are getting what they need amidst the variant.
Question, Madam President?
Go ahead, Dr. Bradley.
Dr. Brown, in regards to the hybrid schedule, just for clarification, students can attend virtually. It's not that they must attend virtually, correct?
With the hybrid schedule, if we use the actual hybrid schedule, then those students will have to attend virtually. And let me give you the thinking behind the hybrid schedule, and it's only offered for right now until March 11th by the state unless they extend it, and that's because of the increasing numbers. Option A would give us, well, what I'm seeing is staff burnout, but it will also, even when staff reporting to work, they're still working, but it will give us that time to make sure those buildings are fully, they're sanitized daily, but to make sure we have a deep cleaning in between those breaks. But it will also kind of alleviate a little bit of the stress on the teachers and the staff, because we do have faculty and staff who are being more absent from work, some for fear of COVID, but a lot of it is burnout. And we're just trying to alleviate some stress there. We do, like Dr. Moore said, the concern is for our students, so we want to make sure that students are being taught every day. Option A with the Wednesday, Friday, we kept looking at, thinking about the younger kids and who will be home with them. And whether it's a high school or a middle schooler, we could not give them different days because we don't know the situations at home. So if a kindergarten student has an 11th grade sibling, then they're out on the same day so that they will have supervision. Option B, we want all students in school, but especially the younger students, but to give them more days and then give them a virtual day as well. But to also kind of give the teachers that opportunity. They will continue teaching, but teaching during COVID, and one teacher actually spoke to me about just the constant reminding, students to keep their mask on, and so it just kind of helps relieve a little pressure, a little stress from teachers. Not a lot, but it does help. But this option is only offered until March 11th, unless the state extends it. So if we went with the hybrid schedule, this would be a district-wide schedule. If not, we continue to offer the virtual for those parents who want their kids virtual and those who would opt face-to-face.
And I don't think that the state would have even offered this if it wasn't necessary. I keep up with the records on my telephone, and the COVID numbers are off the roof. So as far far as transmission, is concerned, I think it's a great idea. And, people are really sick, you know, when they, even though the Omicron is less, severe than the Delta variant, but people are sick, so, and I just feel like as far as transmission is concerned, I think, option A would be the better one. And then another thing I want to know, where are we on our incentives that Dr. Moore told us about the vaccination? Because, I don't know if you all were aware today that our 10th child passed away from, COVID in the state of Mississippi, due to not being vaccinated.
We have, after we spoke with Ms. Washington and Ms. House, the incentives had to be placed in the ESSER3 application. And so since it was already returned anyway, we were working on it. We have added it to the application and submitted it. And so we're waiting on an approval from the Mississippi Department.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Go ahead, Dr. Bailey.
Dr. Brown, just a recommendation as it pertains to the hybrid method of delivery. In the event that the district does go to that, if at all possible, let's try to give parents advance notice, as much notice as we can, so that they can make preparations, as many probably work.
Exactly, and that's why we wanted to take our time to make sure we had a schedule that would fit, get input, and then give some time to let parents know so that they can make provisions.
Okay, Dr. Brown.
Next, you have your data analysis report, COVID-19 updates. In your package, you have the COVID-19 information from August of last year up until January. The COVID numbers are posted on our district's website by Ms. Ray, and so they are continuing to be posted. If you look on page 244, the January COVID cases or numbers for the district are listed on page 244 through 245. As well as our current student enrollment is 4,115 students. Next, we have consideration for executive session.
Okay, that would be, so board members, I passed, school board attorney agreement, if you all can look at it and put interjections and get them to me this week so that we can put it, on the agenda, for Tuesday at our regular board meeting. Please do not forget to get this information to me. And Dr. Moore will be giving us a copy of something else that she wants us to make sure that we fill out and get back to her this week. Okay, Dr. Brown, could you please tell us the correct steps on how to go to do a resolution? We had the first, correct me if I'm wrong, basketball Olympic star here in Greenwood that passed away, and we want to know if would it be appropriate for a resolution on behalf of her history. And she taught in Greenwood at Greenwood High School that I can recall, and then she's a student at Amanda Elsie. So on behalf of the Greenwood Leflore Consolidated School District, we want to, present a resolution, for her services. Does anybody know, the exact date that her services will be?
Yes, ma'am. Thursday, there's a virtual service.
You said a virtual?
Yes, ma'am.
At what time?
Service is at 7 o'clock, but if you have to log on virtually by 6:50 or you'll be locked out.
So you talking about tomorrow?
Well, that's a correction. That's an Omega service. I'm not sure about the regular sprinter service, but there's an Omega service for them.
Oh, okay. So we need to find out, and then do you know who's in charge, Ms. Coleman?
I'll find out.
Okay. So we would like to present, because what she meant to this, city and to this county, and we would like to present, a resolution from this school district to her. As a teacher and as a student and as an athlete.
What we will need is contact from someone just for some details to include in the resolution, and then we can create it from there.
Okay. Does anybody know her personally or her family? Okay, well, I'll try to make some phone calls. Ms. Coleman, you say you do? So, Dr. Brown, if you don't mind, could you, and I'll be more than happy to sign, so we can get it. And if you also could let us know when the virtual service is. Thank you. Is that all, Dr. Brown?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, board members, and consider yourselves dismissed. Miss Flowers, we got something in the back.